The story opens in medias res, with no identifiers, no date, no place, no unit names. The focus is sensory and disorienting, the low mechanical growl of a tank engine cutting through an environment where armored presence is not expected. The imbalance is immediately apparent, not through numbers, but through implication. This machine is alone, moving against the logic of the battlefield. The tension is built around uncertainty rather than action. Enemy forces are nearby, but not yet fully visible. The danger is implied through silence, broken terrain, and disrupted movement. The audience understands instantly that this situation is unstable and temporary. The core question is planted early. How did one tank end up here? And why hasn't it been destroyed yet? This section establishes tone, serious, restrained, and ominous, while creating a curiosity gap that pulls the viewer forward without explanation or myth-making. This section centers on the precise moment when routine military movement fractures into something abnormal. What should have been a predictable advance, organized units moving with assumed superiority, collides with an unforeseen obstacle, a single enemy tank operating outside expected parameters. The encounter is framed less as a clash and more as a disruption, forcing hesitation where momentum should exist. The narrative emphasizes misinterpretation on both sides. Enemy troops struggle to assess scale and intent, mistaking isolation for concealment or reinforcements. Within the tank, the realization emerges that withdrawal is no longer simple or guaranteed. Geography, timing, and hesitation lock both sides into an encounter neither planned. Crucially, the section avoids framing the moment as heroic defiance. Instead, it presents it as an accident of war, where doctrine, expectation, and human assumption briefly fail. The tension lies in uncertainty. Is this a brief delay, or the beginning of something far more costly? This segment escalates stakes by transforming isolation into inevitability, tightening the narrative grip before broader context is introduced. Doctrine says a tank is never meant to fight alone. Armored warfare, by the time of the Second World War, is built on mass, coordination, and support. Tanks advance in units, protected by infantry, guided by reconnaissance, and sustained by supply lines. Alone, a tank is not a spearhead, it is a liability. This section pulls back just enough to make that clear. The machine at the center of this story was designed to be one component in a much larger system. Its armor could deflect small arms fire, but not sustained attention. Its gun could dominate a narrow space, but not an open battlefield. Fuel, ammunition, and mechanical endurance were calculated with relief and reinforcement in mind. By placing this lone tank against the expectations of military doctrine, the imbalance sharpens. What is unfolding is not a clever tactic or a planned stand. It is a breakdown of structure. The danger is no longer just enemy forces. It is the simple fact that the situation violates every assumption the crew was trained to rely on. The confrontation stretches beyond a single exchange and settles into something more dangerous: duration. What follows is not a dramatic charge or a decisive strike, but a series of tense, uneven engagements that bleed time, resources, and certainty. The tank fires, relocates, fires again. Each movement is measured against fuel levels, ammunition counts, and the growing awareness that there will be no relief. Enemy forces adapt. Initial confusion gives way to probing fire, then coordination. Infantry tests distances. Anti-tank weapons are brought forward cautiously, sometimes abandoned, sometimes destroyed. The tank's gun dominates narrow approaches, turning terrain into a weapon, but every success carries a cost. Ammunition dwindles. Mechanical strain accumulates. Damage that would be insignificant in a larger battle becomes critical here. Inside the tank, fatigue replaces adrenaline. Decisions are made with incomplete information and irreversible consequences. The crew no longer measures success by ground gained or enemies destroyed, but by minutes survived. The stand is no longer about holding a position. It is about enduring long enough to remain alive inside a machine never meant to be alone this long. What began as a disruption can no longer be ignored. Command structures respond once the anomaly refuses to resolve itself. Reports move upward, stripped of uncertainty, and rewritten into something actionable. A hostile armored position delaying movement, resisting elimination, consuming time. The lone tank is no longer treated as an accident. It becomes a problem that demands a solution. Enemy forces shift from improvisation to intent. Heavier weapons are positioned. Flanking routes are considered. The surrounding area is no longer viewed as contested terrain, but as a target zone. The escalation is methodical, almost impersonal. The objective is no longer to push forward, but to remove the obstacle completely. This section introduces the moral weight of disproportion. A single crew, acting out of necessity rather than strategy, now draws overwhelming force upon itself. The tank's continued resistance has meaning beyond survival. It shapes enemy decisions, redirects resources, and accelerates destruction. Individual endurance, in this context, does not slow war. It sharpens it. When the fighting ends, it does not arrive with clarity or closure. There is no decisive moment that signals conclusion, only a gradual absence of resistance. Smoke lingers. Movement resumes. The battlefield absorbs the incident and continues forward as if correcting a brief irregularity. In reports and after-action summaries, the encounter is reduced to fragments. Times are inconsistent. Numbers conflict. Some accounts inflate the threat, others dismiss it entirely. The tank, whether destroyed, abandoned, or silenced by other means, is recorded as an obstacle neutralized, not a story worth preserving. For the surviving participants, if any remain, there is no ceremony. The war offers no space for singular events unless they serve a broader narrative. This stand, isolated, costly, and tactically inconvenient, slips quickly into silence. Its significance is not denied, but buried beneath larger movements, larger losses, and a history written at scale, not at the level of one machine and the people inside it. Long after the war, stories like this survive unevenly. They persist not because they change the outcome of campaigns, but because they expose the friction between human action and industrial war. One tank did not stop an army. It did not alter strategy or redraw maps. Its significance lies elsewhere. This final section reframes the encounter as a lens rather than a legend. The stand illustrates how modern war compresses individual experience into statistics, while occasionally allowing moments where scale breaks down and the human element becomes visible again. The tank becomes a reminder of vulnerability, not dominance, of how even the most mechanized systems depend on fragile decisions made under pressure. The reflection closes by returning to silence. Countless similar moments were never recorded at all. This one survives not as proof of heroism, but as evidence of how easily history can overlook the narrow spaces where individuals briefly, painfully, stood alone against forces far larger than themselves.